Make Mommy proud, Jason. Don't let them escape. They can't hide. There's no place to hide. Make them remember me, Jason. Make them remember. Find them. Yes. Yes. Kill for Mother. That's my Jason. That's my special, special boy.
Welcome, everybody, to another after-school special. Hopefully, we won't have any problems on this Friday the 13th.
Wait a second. If anything's gonna happen by the numbers, it should happen today.
It'd be today, right? It's 2020,
Yes.
right? Oh my goodness. We have a very special guest with us today.
Who do we have?
We have Brent, also known as Brentalfloss, famously known as Brentalfloss.
Hello. Thanks for having me, folks.
How are you?
I'm okay. I'm as we were talking about right before we started streaming.
Just hold on a second. Hold on a second. Phoenix, Hun. Is Phoenix there? Okay, we lost Phoenix. Sorry. It sounds like we had a wicked. We have a wicked. Yeah. We have a wicked feedback loop.
Always boomer problems. Boomer hours here.
It might be coming from your mic, buddy.
It's
There we
lower
go.
than- there.
Awesome.
You need to invest a pair of headphones. Talk to Ken Jennings.
Exactly. He's got a couple potatoes floating around. Should be able to help you out. Sorry about that, sir. Please continue with your intro rant there.
Oh yeah, no, I'm good. Can't complain. Feeling lucky and grateful. Waiting on a very important package today. We've had some thefts in my apartment building, so I'm like keeping an eye on my my delivery notifications so that I can run down, no matter what we're talking about, and grab that package in the middle of whatever may happen in the next hour and change. So that's
No
how
problem.
I'm doing. How are y'all doing?
Doing pretty good. I mean, hopefully there's no like supernatural killers lurking around the corner that are gonna take you out.
That's a hope I always kind of have in my heart. That
I
never
wake up
goes
every
away.
morning hoping the same thing.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
day, something happens.
You're just hoping that fortune cookie doesn't say, "Hey, that thing you were hoping, sorry, there is a supernatural killer behind you."
It can always happen whenever you split up from the group. It always happens, right?
That's right. Yeah, I'll be right back. You can't say those words.
Perfect. Well, we'll do our best to keep you safe.
But we promise you nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I had a special delivery today too that I've been like anxious over. Finally got
true.
my Xbox in the mail today.
Nice.
Super excited.
Have you cracked that bad boy open yet?
I have. I'm setting it up right now.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's doing its thing while we're getting all warmed up here for this special.
No,
Phoenix, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. As I said pre-stream, my union picked me for the lottery. I got a gift card come in the mail and give you on the Twitter soon. So there's that. And Brent's here, so
There we go.
it's good.
Good stuff. We have Randy Scribner Jr. in the chat, says hello, says hi.
Oh,
We have Mad Master Porky. What could possibly go wrong? Exactly.
it's only Friday the 13th. And speaking of such, who put that dope fly intro together, yo?
Oh my god, I put the intro together on that one. That was a fun one. I have to get the artist name. I think it was Stein that did that music, which is absolutely fantastic. I added the audio, like the voiceover audio to it after that, so that was all my doing. Put that together. But we have a master of lyrical content. We have a master of putting great stuff to music right here with us.
We do.
We do.
We have two guests on. I feel it's door number 1 or door number 2.
We have our
Why
our
am I so
supreme,
confused?
we have our supreme Canucklehead Phoenix Orum with us, and we have our wonderful guest
That's true.
Brent.
I have that in my notes right here. And then we have you. So how you doing?
So Brent, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, let's see. What's pertinent to this situation? I talk a lot, and there's a lot to say.
That's okay.
12 years ago on YouTube, took the intro theme to Mega Man 3, a game that many viewers will now think of as antique. And
ooh, ouch.
I know, right? Added some lyrics, kind of like Weird Al, but sexier and balder. And it kind of put me on the YouTube map. I turned that into a full-time career. Took a break starting around 2015. Made a digital party game called Use Your Words, as we were talking about before we went to stream. I actually made Use Your Words mostly in Toronto because that's where the team was. Miss it every day. Think about immigrating pretty much every day.
It's okay. Right now, Toronto is not the place to be. They got
so I
hung
hear.
up.
Good right here.
So I hear. Yeah.
They got hung up in the brand new red district. The whole city is now red because of the pandemic.
Well, and Rob Ford Part 2 is apparently in charge.
Hey, this Rob Ford is better than the other Rob Ford because it has more kung fu grip.
He's like, however, he's like the byway version of Rob Ford.
Yes,
this is true.
Yes, I remember
a little more common sense, a little less cracking.
I remember looking on Twitter and going, I thought Rob Ford is dead. Oh my god! But
another.
My goodness.
To wrap all this up, I am now doing a new season of my video game parody songs. Brentalfloss being the name of my YouTube channel, and just dropped a Mass Effect song. Recently, I've done stuff with Shovel Knight, Luigi's Mansion 3, and a bunch of other stuff. So a lot of fun stuff going on over there. And I'm excited to kind of talk to some nerds on a live show. I don't do that as much anymore, and it's kind of cool to get back into that group.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
It is. Plus, on top of that, we seem to drop Phoenix somewhere.
Phoenix is restarting his browser. He's going to try to get some audio issues sorted out.
That's awesome. I didn't mean to pick on the poor guy too much. It's like Phoenix. Oh, was ist das?
And I have a bone to pick with you, Brent. I listened to your mix of Luigi's Mansion, and that made me want to get that game so bad, and I had to buy it.
I think this is why Nintendo never cease and desisted me in the early days, because they were like, I think this guy's selling virtual console, like retro games, and also these days, I feel like the way I edit the videos, I'm trying to. Well, it depends on if I like the game or hate the game, but I'm trying to make Luigi's Mansion 3 look pretty cool. It's a fun game.
Yeah. It is pretty darn fun. It's pretty darn fun. So you mentioned about like the DMCA stuff, kind of like that. That's a big thing right now.
Oh gosh, is it ever?
I mean, it wasn't.
Use 1.8 of any particular copyright material. You're banned. You've gone to the cornfield, and you get no monies from us.
I mean, we're not monetized here anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But when like I use like a snippet, like 30 seconds of something, I got slapped with the yellow sticker saying you can't monetize this. I'm like, well, can't anyways. But like, that wasn't like a huge thing back in the day. Like, how do you deal with that stuff now?
Well, what's funny is but it was in a very different way. Like I did a song that was obviously a parody of What a Wonderful World, the Louis Armstrong song.
Yeah.
It's called Super Mario World. And, Super Mario World, that was the joke. And the company that owned that song slapped me down, and they were like, you can't do that. Same with a video I did called Nintendo Hemian Rhapsody with a guy named Pat the NES Punk. And we worked really hard on it. Brian May of Queen tweeted about it. But the copyright owners, which typically are little men with the money who aren't able to write anything creative themselves. So they find
got advocates. Very careful with them.
They find a way to own other people's stuff and then, say, hey, that's mine. And it's like, okay. But anyway, so the point is that at one time was an issue. And then we got into like a nice phase where they changed Content ID so that you could share with the copyright holder most of the time. And they know that you're sort of promoting their song, and they can either share with it or demonetize it, but let you keep, like showing people the video. And that was a pretty good system. And now, and I'm reading about it, it's apparently worse on Twitch than YouTube, but now it's like people can claim their copyright holders of a song that they don't really own the way it sounds like they do, the way that they're claiming to do. And so then you have to dispute it, and it's this whole thing. So like the weirdest one recently was I made a parody song of Super Mario 64, and I made my own arrangement, meaning I didn't just use the song from the soundtrack. I made my own version. And I'd never seen this before. It said portions of this video use the same melody as
the same melody.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like sort of like Shazam, sort of like hearing the melody. To be fair, it was not the most. I didn't turn the song into bluegrass. It wasn't like the weirdest, most off the wall arrangement. It's pretty similar to the first one, but it's like never seen that one. It's the nature of it has changed. But to be fair, that one, at least they said will do shared monetization.
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah, I mean, like, even if I'm only making a small amount, it's better than being demonetized. And so like, it's like it evolves in good ways on one side, but then on the other side, the whole system is broken because it seems like almost anyone can claim they own any song, even if the song was sampled on a hip hop thing that they put onto a compilation of theirs. That, you know what I'm saying? It's really messed up, and I'm really hoping YouTube and Twitch just figure out a way to make it make sense, even if they have to have people hand adjudicate each case or something. I don't know.
Something has to happen. I mean, we uploaded a bumper for like a spoiler thing for our convention that we run for. We're announcing a guest. And somebody had recorded the audio that we used, uploaded a video with the audio that they recorded, and copyright claimed it.
Well, hold on. There's one small step behind that. They used a audio tape recorder.
Yeah, a tape recorder.
You could hear the tape recorder. And they went, that's our music! And you could hear the audio, you could hear the crackling of the tape, you could hear everything. And it's oh, really?
That is such bullshit.
It was insane. And it's so crazy because people can just claim it and not own anything. And then you have to go through all of this stuff to dispute it. It's so heavily weighed. And it's all because like YouTube and Twitch, they don't want to touch anything. They don't want to get involved at all. So they're like, oh, well, someone's making a claim. It's your right. It's up to you to do this.
Yeah, right. And I don't exactly blame them, because you think about how many probably, I mean, I don't know what it is. I wouldn't be surprised to find out millions of videos are uploaded today. Certainly it's many, many, many thousands.
Oh yeah, it's just something like 5,000 hours of video every 2 minutes or something like that type of thing.
So the idea of like,
it's really silly.
Yeah, the idea of actually by hand having a human go through and make sure that you own the thing you say you own.
Yeah.
I don't, as much as that's how it should be, I don't think that's reasonable or possible. But I think that in the same way as when they created the shared monetization or the you don't get a strike, but they remonetize your video, once they made that system, it took care of a lot of issues. And a lot of people were like, well, this sucks, but I still have my Patreon or whatever. They'll be okay. The video doesn't get taken down. They don't get a strike. They need to think outside the box in a way that I don't know what they should do, but it's Google. They need to think of some way.
and before that, it's Alphabet on top of that.
Yeah. Well, they need to find a way to simplify the process. Maybe they have to make it where it's like, if you copyright claim a thing, maybe the copyright claimant, if that's a word, needs to
we'll use it.
Yeah, it needs to tick a few more boxes and jump through one or two more hoops before they can own, that thing, just so that you don't have some company that's, 3 letters followed by a space and another 3 letters. You can't even find a website for them. And they apparently own a thing that is original that you wrote that didn't come out till today. It's like, what?
Exactly. Well, I've uploaded, because I've done things before where I've uploaded a video and I want to like change it 3 or 4 times, and so I keep uploading different videos. And I've had like a video where I've uploaded 7 times and had 7 different people copyright claim it.
That's wild.
It's so crazy.
Wild.
That's amazing.
It's so crazy.
You should bring them all to court and put your hand on your hip and say, okay, which one of you crazy bastards own this? Come on.
And I've actually had instances where people release the copyright claim, because our videos don't get a whole lot of views. Like, we don't get the 10 million views. So there's no money in it.
Yeah.
But they'll claim it for the first 3,000 views and then release it if it's not getting any more. So it's crazy stuff like that. Like, I don't remember, like, because like full disclosure, I wasn't big into YouTube back in the day. Like, I was into like Newgrounds, I was into like Flash animations. I went that branch of the internet, the dark side of the internet, if you will.
The darky side.
So like, I didn't know people like PewDiePie or Markiplier or like even yourself. I didn't know that you guys existed until like recently, because I got more into YouTube. So I have like this great stuff, like this great library to go back and look over. But then I don't know what YouTube was like back in the day as well. So like, how did you get into broadcasting, and how did that like blow up, and how did you handle that?
Well, we take YouTube for granted now, and we take even Twitch for granted as just things that are part of the media landscape. But in 2006, which is when I signed up for YouTube, the idea that you could have a laptop with a camera and a microphone built in, and you could just push a few buttons, and suddenly you're putting video of yourself onto the internet for anyone to see, an unlimited audience potentially. Mm-hmm. That was really revolutionary. And for someone like me who has an endless vacuum-like need for attention, it was a pretty cool idea. And so, I started out making, nobody thought of it as brands. The phrase creating content was much more of a corporate thing, and I still am creeped out when I hear kids saying I want to be a content creator, because it sounds like they're saying I want to be a product source. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, kids today say the silliest and silliest of things. Plus, on top of that, with all the business jargon going around, people just go, "Oh, that's the way you're supposed to say it." I like brands too. I want to become a brand. So it's like, oh, sweet potato child.
Right. I grew up wanting to be a rock star. Now they want to be. I want to be a content creator. Anyway, so
I want to be a light brand. I want to be a shoe. Yeah.
I started out making videos that I was kind of trying to do like a Bill Maher thing back when I watched his stuff. And like, then I started doing like video game covers, but just on the piano. And I just tried different things. I did some Homestar Runner impressions. And then about 2 years into having a YouTube channel, I was teaching a course on like songwriting for kids. So I was like thinking about lyrics and thinking about songwriting all day, every day. And I just got this song stuck in my head, and I had just gotten a MacBook with the new iMovie that was much easier to use. And I just slapped together this clunky little video that looks basically like a photo, what am I trying to say? A PowerPoint. And it just blew up. I mean, it didn't blow up like by today's standards, but like something like 10,000 views in a day.
Oh gosh, I remember. I really missed those days, because basically one of the few things about yours truly is that I was involved with YouTube since 2007 as well, and it's astronomical to see exactly how this platform it's changed, man. It's changed so much. And the thing is that you upload a video, people used to laugh at it, laugh with you, have a good time, watch it, and you get anywhere between 10 to 20K in views in a very, very short period of time. Today, people are wrestling with the fact like, hey, we got 2 digits. Isn't that grand?
Yeah. Well, and one of the most sobering and humbling parts of returning to the YouTube scene after not doing it for a couple of years is realizing how the rules have changed, how the number of
God,
subscribers you have doesn't really have anything to do with your views. So like, not to brag, but I'm like just a few subscribers shy of 450,000. But that doesn't mean a video I make's gonna, get above 10,000 views in the first month. You got to play the game, and the game was very different back then. And I think that the main difference, there's a lot. I could do a whole hour on this, but I'm going to try to just say one more concrete thing. What I'm a little bit jealous of when I think of, professional YouTubers and Twitch streamers these days is if they meet somebody on an airplane, somebody under the age of 60, and that person says, "What do you do?" And they say, "I'm a professional YouTuber." The under 60 person will have an idea of what that is and think of it as a job. They might have, follow-up questions.
Yeah.
But back when I was stuck on an airplane with people and I would try to explain it, it was the worst because they'd go, "Okay, well, so what's your real job? Well, how do you make money? Well, can you," and then the worst when they go, "Can you show me your videos?" And I'm like, "You're too much of a normie. Most people are too much of a normie. I do musical numbers about video game, and they would still find it and they'd think it was going to be fun and funny. And then they'd realize, oh, I don't get this. I find it weird. This is extremely awkward. And we've got 2.5 more hours before we get to New York City." Great.
Put the mask on, go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Politely.
So like nowadays, it's like, it's not that everyone thinks it's cool. It's that it is a thing that is in the mainstream more or less universally understood to be an actual job.
Yeah.
And I wish I had been able to experience that when I was a little bit more in the early first or second wave of the Wild West of YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because, like, honestly, I just do this stuff for fun. Like, I don't do it as a job. I don't take it as seriously as some people I know take it seriously. Like, I'm on Twitch. I'm on YouTube. Like, we only have like just over 500 subscribers here on YouTube, and on Twitch I have like I'm affiliated on Twitch. I'm not partnered or anything, but it's an interesting thing. It's like, just as a part-time thing, like, I find it fun. I would find it so stressful relying on this as like my only source of income. Just because like for like folks like yourself that came before that paved the way to what we can do now. People saw the success that people were getting. Like, they see the top tier, like they see the top 1%, and they see how much they're making, and like it goes back to what we were saying about cosplayers, because we talk about this topic a lot. Cosplayers are very much the same thing. Like, Mr. Hop and I run a convention here in Kitchener, Kitchener Comic-Con, and we get people that come in that want to be guests for our convention, and they have this massive ego, and it's like, okay, well, like, what do you do? It's like, well, I'm a cosplayer. Okay.
Awesome.
How many people do you bring in? Like, nobody. You don't bring anybody because no one really knows you outside of your bubble. Like, you're popular in your bubble and that stuff. Like, but you're not a Jessica Negri. You're not like a massive personality. Like, it comes down to that, like, with streamers too, to a point. Like, I personally love like giving platforms to people and bringing up indie creators and indie streamers and stuff like that, like small creators, even large creators, like, great. But it comes down to, while yes, you are a cosplayer, while yes, you are a streamer or a broadcaster, there's another side to it as well. It's how much do you market? How much marketability or do you bring to the table? Like, what other intangibles do you bring? It's not just one side of it that people just don't understand.
And also, what are your demographics for the different platforms you're a part of? Because, hey, if you're on Instagram and you're getting like 10,000 billion likes, that's awesome. But if you start trolling off to Twitter or Facebook and you're struggling to meet double digits, it's sort of like, ooh. There's something not
like,
right.
Like, don't sell your
brand. They're a brand.
but don't sell yourself short there, Brent, because obviously you had some level of intangibles to market yourself to get big. Otherwise, like, you're talking about knowing the game, right? That's a level of IQ for like YouTube and broadcasting that a lot of people just don't connect with. They think they can just flick their camera on, they can just go on and dance and sing and whatever else, and they're just going to get 1 million viewers. But there is a lot more layers to that. And like,
yeah, More than there used to be.
More than there
sure.
used to be. Yeah.
You know, one thing I have to remind myself is, you know, in my mid-20s, so I first got my first big video was when I was 24. And I was just 2 years out of grad school, and I'd gone to grad school with a bunch of artsy types just like me. And so I was sort of the first person in my friend group to be working full time doing my art. And that's it sounds pretentious, but you know what I mean? What I love to do or whatever. And so at the time I thought, well, I am getting to do this full time because I am a special person. I am more special than them. I am good. I am successful. And a real gift and curse of maturity after kind of taking a break from that, trying other things, trying to come back is you really have to take into account luck, timing, opportunity, and of course there's aptitude. But sometimes I'll stumble upon a video on YouTube that's got 136 views, and I'll look at the way it's edited and go, if this person had like hit YouTube with this in 2007, they'd have 500,000 subs. But it's like, so there's that part of it. Mm-hmm. I think that I kind of started a thing that nobody was doing the way I do it. Pretty much there's nobody doing it exactly how I do it, because I think a lot of people would cringe at themselves if they did. But you know, like it is just interesting how you can never lean. What am I trying to say? You can never rest on your laurels thinking it's all, you know, everything good comes out of your ass because you are this god of talent and wonderfulness. And now that I've seen friends of mine who at certain points in my life were sidekicks or kind of riding my coattails, or in certain cases, YouTubers who were kind of started out as like having kind of a fan energy communicating with me at conventions, now have 5 times as many subs. And you just, you know, I think the lesson there is you can see other people get lucky, and that shows you how lucky you were, even if they're doing better than you. And also, in a topic that wasn't even something we were talking about, you really have to imagine that every creator you ever talk to could become huge. And you shouldn't ever be mean or rude or dismissive to anyone. But wow, like you just never know. You just never know.
Exactly. Like, I mean, like you look at huge sensations like Ninja, for example, like, as an example. Like there's a few Twitch streamers that I watch that they're just everyday people, and they got really lucky because they used to stream on Justin TV and it turned into Twitch and all this other stuff. So like you never really know. And like that's the approach that Mr. Hop and I take when for this show and for our convention and for everything that we do. It's like you want to give people a chance, because that's usually what it takes for a lot of people. It's just give them a chance. Sometimes you get lucky, and like you never know what you could inspire in people. And I think that's really important. I think artists and entertainers in general are criminally undercredited for the amount that they bring to the table in terms of inspiration for future generations, in terms of pushing the boundaries for things and making society grow. Like I personally think like what you do, Brent, putting lyrics to existing music is probably one of the tougher things to do. Like outside of writing music itself, which is completely foreign to me. I have no idea how to do it, but putting lyrics to existing things and have it make sense, that's an art form that a lot of people just don't have a grasp of.
And on top of that, a lot of people have difficulty naming something, let alone sitting down with a pre-designed or a pre-written music going, okay, does this lyrics work? There we go. 4 weeks later, I think I have it done. So yes, it's just not hard. It's horribly, terribly hard.
I appreciate that. I think that, you know, like it's one of those things where I think it's kind of a blessing and a curse, because like I think some people just have one of those, like people have a thing where they don't really know exactly how they're good at something. Like you can hone and sharpen a natural talent. And I feel very thankful that my parents were, they knew I was a weird artsy kid, and they were like, let's encourage this instead of trying to.
Child is being creative again.
Yeah. They supported that. I mean, they made me try out sports enough times to go, yeah, no, he's a creative kid. But
how much you paying for this? No. We're
but I think that it's like when people ask me to explain, like, how do you do that? And to me, it's like this. I'm trying to like say this in a way that doesn't sound braggy, but let's be real. Putting lyrics to video game tunes isn't exactly the most coveted talent, so let's keep that in mind. But it's kind of like there's just something about the way that words scan and the way that people talk that what I'll do to start with a video game tune is I'll write what's called a dummy lyric, which is basically just figuring out how the words work, figuring out how for instance, I recently did a video about Fall Guys, and it has this very repetitive song, and it's also a very repetitive game. And so I realized that I could just do the same line in the dummy lyric like 4 times in a row. I tweeted about that with a screenshot of the dummy lyric, and somebody was like, if it's that repetitive, maybe that's your gag in the song. And suddenly I was like, holy shit, that's a great idea. And it all started from I'm trying to see if I can find this dummy lyric, because if I can, it'll really illustrate what I'm trying to say here. Okay, well, the point is, if you can figure out how the song might scan with words that don't matter, then you can try to figure. Here we go. Okay.
Yay.
Okay. So the thing I repeated over and over again was, this is a really repetitive game, a repetitive game, a repetitive game. That was the final lyric. But when I was doing the dummy lyric, I wrote, let's get an apple and chew on the core. If we want a bit more, we'll go back to the store. Let's get an apple and chew on the core. If we want a bit more, we'll go back to the store. Oh, baby, let's get an apple and chew on the core. I just realized like I could write these words that mean nothing, but they kept being the same every time. And that, not having to worry about what the lyrics are at the beginning can like give you a little bit of a sense of like the structure and what's called prosody and scansion, and just like making it where you can hear in your head, hopefully, how somebody would express themselves through speech using these syllables. I don't know. I'm probably getting a little bit esoteric.
That's a great description of that process. Like it sounds really simple when people explain it, but it's like being an artist. Like I understand that. Like when you're talking about like drawing or creating or anything else like that, it's like it's that process that not everyone can do, because some people are more like different minded, like left brain, right brain type of thinking. So some people just can't get that, and I think it's really valuable to have that and to nurture that and bring that, because I mean, honestly, the early 2000s had a really unique sense of humor. Like compare that to today. Compare that to today. Like 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, it was a much different sense of humor. Really, really weird, really off the wall, like if like you said,
lots of people doing silly walks, stuff like that.
Like showing it to normies, they'd be like, what the hell's wrong with you?
I don't understand. You find this to be funny? Yes.
It was a bit more edgelordy too. Like a lot of it doesn't age well. The funny thing about comedy especially is like we're always dealing with things we're uncomfortable with. And the funniest comedians and the funniest comedy for any given point in time is usually connected to something people are really uncomfortable about. But because they work through it, and as a culture, we get more mature about it over the next 5-10 years. If you look at comedy that's 10 years old or more, it's like, that's so insensitive and immature about that topic. And it's like, yeah, it is. And it was shitty then too, but it was considered funny because it was connected to something so uncomfortable,
Yeah.
It's very weird.
I just want to say, Brent, Yeah, the Fall Guys song is now stuck in my head. Thank you, sir.
Whatever I can do.
Enjoy the warm ear.
I'm gonna say something a little crazy, but for me, because I used to do what you did, I was very heavy on the Nintendo. I would play games, and the beat and the chip tunes would just I could hear lyrics in the music. If that how crazy that sounds, and I would be playing and be like, oh no, do their lyrics to it. Then I happened to find your YouTube series, or your What If Had X had lyrics, right? And I'm thinking, hey, I used to do that, and that's how I started following you, man. But just cool. Do you hear the lyrics in the music as well when you're playing? Is that not too crazy?
Yes, I mean, like I remember as a kid, one time, and I think I did stuff like this a lot. I would just make up songs when nobody was listening. But I remember one time I was playing the original Mario, the underwater level, and I was making up words as I was playing it. And my dad had quietly entered the room without making a noise. And when I noticed he was there, I was probably 5 or 6, I don't know. I was so embarrassed because that was just my own little vulnerable, weird. Like I even had a sense then that was something to be embarrassed of. But yeah, so when it's like, do you hear the lyrics while playing? Absolutely. But a lot of times doing YouTube content, you have to sort of reverse engineer that process. You go, wow, I really love this song where Scrooge McDuck goes to the moon in the DuckTales game. I really want to do that because I love the tune, but you, instead of hearing lyrics while you're playing it, you got to find the lyrics in it. And I think the real trick of it is like not just making a list of things about the game in the lyric, at least doing what I do specifically. But if you can, it's like finding some way to marry the best part of the tune, the hook, that gets really stuck in your head, with a joke or an observation that resonates about the game. And I don't always achieve that, but when you can do that, it's like the most satisfying, I think, way to do it. And there's certainly analogs of that in any kind of songwriting. You want, if you can, the most catchy part of the song to also be connected to the main idea. And a lot of times songs I don't like are the ones where it's like, okay, a good example is All About That Bass. All About That Bass ostensibly is equating the parts of a woman's body to the equalization, like the range of frequencies a human can hear. So I guess boobs are treble and bass is a butt, but like it doesn't really on first listen make a lot of sense. So like the verse is all about booties and curves and grabbing this booty, and you need something warm to grab at night. And then ostensibly the chorus is like, and that's why I really am all about the lower part of the human frequency spectrum and not the higher one. Anyway, it's like it's a little fun, but then again, it was iconic and we still remember it. So maybe I'm the asshole, but yeah, it's a really interesting. There's science to it because there's so many variables.
So here's a quick question for you, especially in your field of stuff. Getting back to comedy here, just for a quick millisecond, have you found that your audience or the audience in general has gotten a little more sensitive over time? Because again, getting back to the comedy stuff, it used to be you could say a lot in comedy, get away with a lot, and people are laughing at it, and everyone's having a good time. But in today's time, people kind of go, "Oh, what did you just say? Oh my gosh, how could you say that?" It's like, but it was a joke.
I'm going to add on to what you say there, Mr. Hop, because I actually listened to a few of your videos leading up to the show because I want to get familiar with your work. I absolutely fucking loved the Limbo song that you made.
Thanks.
That was great. That was fantastic. And I noticed in the comment section that I don't know if it was comments or if it was something else, but you'd mentioned that people were giving you the gears about the accent that you used. And this was like back a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
So there's a lot of step one. I think that there are a lot of Americans who think of a Caribbean accent as something that you hear from people of color. It's not exclusively, but I was kind of Sebastian the Crab. So I can see why some people, And again, it's not so much.
You did a Colombian accent.
Oh,
but you're Caucasian and you're American. Oh my God, your thought
Caribbean, but yeah,
Caribbean, even better.
Yeah, but I mean, so like that being said, I think that when I started doing YouTube, I was a little bit closer to a mid to late 2000s edgelord, and part of that is like growing up in Texas, going to school in Oklahoma. To the extent that toxic masculinity is part of the society, I grew up steeped in that, and there's two different meanings to the word sensitive. There's the idea that like, ow, I bruise easily, I'm weak. There's also when people are sensitive to the needs of others, right?
Right.
And so while, yeah, I think my audience has gotten more sensitive, the amount of time I've spent around really cool people who are not in the straight white guy group, the more I've kind of come around to see sides of the equation. And also just, I did a news podcast for years where my politics typically were left wing, but when you have an audience, you hear so many opinions and you go, shit, I really don't want to change the way I talk, the way I make art. But the more you know about how things affect people, the harder it is to make certain jokes because you go, is this even funny to me anymore? So I have evolved a bit, and to your point about putting in the video description about the voice, I have gone through and put some depending on a content note, content warning, whatever it is, just to like kind of be like, yeah, I get that this didn't age well, and I get why. And if you're uncomfortable about it, just know that I know that. But at the same time, look, yeah, there are times where people will have complaints that I'm just like, you're not even speaking a language I know. I cannot get on board with what you're saying. And I think part of the problem is that there are assholes in every camp. So even if somebody's coming from a place that I go, I understand that you have hurt and pain or marginalization, or you're sticking up for people but at the same time, if that person is a total asshole, they might be taking it too far. They might be being unreasonable about it, and they might like really not be representing their point of view very well. So like, it's a compound issue. I've changed a lot, but at the same time, if something's funny, that says just as much about the audience listening to it as the comedian. And that's why I get stuck when like Dave Chappelle said some stuff on his recent SNL monologue where I was like, whew, Dave, no, sir. But also, if a comedian is telling you jokes on live TV, it's almost definitely true that comedian has gotten laughs for those jokes night after night after night. Otherwise, they wouldn't do them for a national audience. Comedians don't keep telling jokes that don't get laughs. So even though it's not okay, I'm not saying it's okay to make a really, really kind of like harmfully vile joke. If somebody's doing it on their comedy special or on SNL, it's only because audiences found it funny. So again, it's a very complicated issue.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also a fact like we've grown up in multi generations here that were vastly different. Like the 80s was different, the 90s was different, the early 2000s were different, and now we're entering another age where it's kind of like the renaissance of political correctness that we saw from the mid to late 90s. It was a huge push for censorship, huge push for political correctness. All that sort of stuff is kind of coming back, and it's coming back like tenfold now. Like I've lived through it. Like Mr. Hops lived through it. I think most of us here have lived through it. There's a whole generation that never knew about that. Like there's a lot of kids that were born in the late 90s that are hitting their late teens, early 20s now that had never been exposed to that. And this is the first experience they're getting. So like, I guess from my perspective, when I look at stuff that's quote unquote offensive, and things that are really offensive, like there's the categories there. I guess I'm kind of like, in a sense, desensitized to some of that, but I've also had that maturity, that growth between those periods where it's like, okay, yeah, we can kind of differentiate when things are, off color and when things are actually crossing the line. And I think like that goes to what you're saying with the comedians, that they get laughs from people and they bring this out. And then when it gets brought to a larger audience, not necessarily people that want to go there and expect that from that person, then we get into the big things where, you know, all of a sudden someone's getting canceled on Twitter or what have you. Like one of the biggest things that I saw, like, just blown up everywhere, was, as I don't know if you watched The Mandalorian.
No, I've seen all the Baby Yoda memes, but I haven't gotten around to actually watching the show.
Great series, by the way.
You've seen the names, but I have not yet seen the television streaming show.
That's the 2020 for you. That's like I've seen all the cute specific moments of the show people make jokes about in GIFs, but haven't sat down and watched.
If you dig Star Wars, it's a high recommend, especially the first season.
If you like Star Wars,
like,
if you're a fan of like,
one second. We're talking about the good Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right.
That little astar behind it all.
What's funny is like I'm more of a Trekkie. I'm more of a Trekkie.
Yeah,
but
I was just gonna.
I think that
Sorry, Brent.
No, it's okay. I think that from what I understand, the latest Star Wars serial kind of content is better than the latest Star Trek serial content.
Oh Jesus,
You know?
that's a really hard comparison. I would almost think the Star Trek is more funner than the Star Wars, because the thing is that I'm a Star baby. I really enjoy both platforms, and the thing is that again, when you had J.J. Abrams running around with a motorcycle, listen to Beastie Boys, you know, at least that was fun to watch. Some of the stuff in Star Wars, it's like, oh look, there's Rey.
Yeah,
she's a Jedi.
The movies were rough. I think the Star Trek movies were better. Like we're talking recent. The Star Trek movies were better than the Star Wars movies. But the Star Trek series on TV is, in my opinion, a little bit lesser than what they're putting it with the Mandalorian. We're going to see that series.
But basically, Star Trek Discovery, my honest opinion, is absolutely deplorable, especially when you compare it to the Mandalorian, for goodness sakes. Like,
it lacks what the Mandalorian has. And if you haven't seen the series yet, Star Trek Continues, highly recommend that, because much like the Mandalorian, there's a lot of and soul into that series. So Star Trek Continues, it basically starts off, it's a fan-made production. Friend of the stream, Vic Mignogna, created it, stars in it, and it basically starts off at the end of the original Star Trek, the original series, and
back in '62.
It continues on from there. So if you're a fan of the original series, fantastic. It has the heart and soul poured into it, a lot of care and effort, a lot of attention paid to it, much like what's going on with the Mandalorian. But you've seen all the cute Baby Yoda memes, which is great.
You're almost there.
The funny part was like, this is where we hit that wall of like what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. So on the last episode, so not today's episode, but last week's episode, there was an alien that needed to be shipped off to another planet, and she sought the Mandalorian for help, and she had a bunch of eggs that were unfertilized, and it was the last of her family line, and she needed to go and deliver them to her husband, so they could make babies. And so throughout the episode, the running gag was that Baby Yoda was eating the eggs, and people were losing their mind, saying like, this is like, he's committing genocide, he's doing all of this terrible stuff, blah 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 blah. You have this massive divide of people, like one people in a group that are saying like he's literally Hitler, and another person that's just saying it's like, well, he's just eating like chicken eggs basically, like what's your problem? And there's really no in between in there, which was crazy.
Well, the thing is, comparing that episode to the first episode that came out this season as well, for just from a writing narrative perspective, is really night and day as well, because the first episode was absolutely fantastic, solid 10s across the board, and the second episode was like, oh, okay, someone else is taking the wheel. Interesting, because one of the things about Baby Yoda that people don't quite realize is Baby Yoda isn't really a baby. The creature is at least 25 years old, so it understands language. It's cute, it's cuddly to some, but overall this is borderlining a young adult, but people haven't made that connection yet.
Well, it's also a Force user, and it's an untrained.
Oh yeah, that likes to choke things,
and
which is even more interesting.
It's teetering between the light side and the dark side, which is what the producers are trying to get to.
Yeah.
Well,
and also we don't know if we don't know if this has been created in a lab or it's naturally been born.
Yeah.
So that's going to be another interesting question moving forward with this little space nugget.
Yeah. You can go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, sorry. I'm geeking out. I apologize.
Oh, it's cool. It's cool.
Who in the hell is that?
Just make sure it's not the mailman.
No
This
problem.
is gonna be
It's all good. It's all good.
hello.
Hello?
Okay, I'll be right down.
Perfect.
Really? Excellent.
Wow, have you ever had this happen on your show? Yeah, my new phone.
Never.
I'm gonna be right back, y'all.
No,
All
don't
right.
leave. Don't leave. Phoenix,
how it
what'd you
happens.
do?
This is how it happens.
What did you do, Crumb?
He breaks away. He breaks away from it, and we're just gonna have on the 6 o'clock news. Jason Voorhees is gonna get him.
What do you think of the best guest we ever had? Brent's chair.
that is a badass chair. Honestly, that is such a good chair.
Chair Coon? Is this the Ricada show?
Chair Sama?
Doesn't look like Chair Coon.
Let's just not get chained
What
anywhere
in
near
the
him.
Navy Jones is this? Hey,
But
here's a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do we have any questions from our general viewing audience by chance?
Well, people are talking. People
Well, that's
are talking.
cool.
Tom
about
P in the
people.
chat says there's some Star Trek continued vignettes that are worthy of mention as well.
Yeah.
One of these days it's going to get around to watching The Mandalorian, but only on a Blu-ray release.
Oh, that's
That'd be
both
interesting.
cool and both unfortunate at the same time. Because
right now for people who are fans of the Clone Wars and things like that, they're hitting that really hard right now.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Really hard.
And going back to that little thing called continuity, that's always great.
And like the funny part is like when I'm looking at this stuff, I see like John Favreau has to be a big fan of the Star Wars tabletop RPG. Has to be, because you see, I'm not going to spoil much of this. All I'm going to say is that Mando, like the Mandalorian, is very much the rascal like rogue class. Like they call them scoundrels.
Yep.
In the RPG.
Yeah.
He meets the soldier class in this one in today's episode.
Oh, that's good.
You will see the difference. Let me tell you, you're going to see the difference, which is funny because here's the thing. It's like in the game, like in the RPG game, you see like you see the differences between what scoundrels and the different classes can do. Yes, Mando's the scoundrel. The other people are soldiers. Welcome back, Brent.
Hello.
You made it. You avoided Voorhees.
Yes.
And we didn't recognize you with the mask on there, so we didn't know who
Your
you
chair
were.
was a terrific guest host.
That's right. We thought this was the Ricada show the first second because it chair.
Red
Sama.
Bunch chair has served me so well for like I think 7 years now. Like that's a hell of
Did
an
you make it
investment.
yourself?
That's really good.
Did I do what?
Did you make it yourself? You
I-
said bungee chair for a second.
Oh no! I got it at the Container Store. I just really liked it.
A container store. What's a container store?
Oh, that's awesome. Look at that.
Oh,
So yeah, it kind of is like a real nice little hammock. The Container Store is an American retail chain that is precisely what it sounds like. It is, if you go and you want drawers, you want a filing cabinet, you want kitchen storage, dry food storage, you want, I mean, I've got like a thing that's about this big. It's about 6 inches deep, but it's like all these tiny drawers, like thumbtacks, paper clips, lighters, like, that's the Container Store. And the thing is that this is not a container you'll find. It contains my ass, but like,
that is true. That is true. It's like, how does that contain?
So good.
Oh,
I had seen it somebody else with a bungee chair. And when I sat it in, I was like, I gotta have it. You gotta fucking have it.
It's coming with me. But you have
So
no
it's not
money.
a first
You
chance.
understand.
So Brent, I know that you had a point that you were going to mention. If that train hasn't left the station,
it's the idea. You talked about with the Baby Yoda eating eggs. Like there didn't seem to be any in between genocide and this is just a cute thing feeding itself, whatever. But I think that one facet of all this is that there is a huge in between. They just aren't motivated to either stand the thing or make a stink.
Yeah.
And in some cases, I think that's not necessarily a good thing, because I think that we still have a lot of work to do in terms of like, there's still things that we say, like I, for a long time was the kind of person that would, I didn't know if everybody who was on, for instance, mental health drugs should be. Like, I grew up in the generation where you'd kind of say something like, oh yeah, they're off their meds. Or like, you're on the brain candy, get, toughen up. Like, just take, I don't need that stuff. You do. You're in therapy. Now I've been in therapy for 9 years and I'm on 2 medications and living my best freaking life. But what comes along with that is going, I don't think I can make certain jokes now, and maybe I kind of shouldn't have all along. It's a real, but at the same time, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, it's a very sticky issue. There are extremes on both sides, but
no, I think it's a great topic. Like myself, like I'm very much into like destigmatizing that type of stuff. I love talking about it. Like, I'm very open about what I go through. I know Mr. Hop is on board with this stuff as well. Like we had it hit home for us a few years ago, because we have a great convention family. We have an amazing team. Shout out to our
cry. I swear to God, Crump.
This is the stream. We make everyone cry on this stream.
Oh God. There we go.
It's a fact of life. We have an amazing convention team. So shout outs to our convention team for Kitchener Comic Con. You guys are amazing. I'm going to shout you out every single time, because it's just, like, honestly, we put together a convention on a shoestring budget. We are independent. We don't have sponsors right now, but we bring an amazing show to this region every single year, which it has improved the lives of so many people. We get tons of stuff all the time saying, thank you for doing this, blah, blah, blah. Because cosplay is a great way for people to manage their mental health stuff, getting out and meeting people that share the same interests in a safe space and in a place that is inclusive and all of that good stuff. We ended up losing a team member a few years ago. He lost his battle with depression, and it was really tough on all of us. He was the happiest person. You would never know that anything was bothering him. Never made any waves. He was always willing to help people. And we found out in his video that he took before he passed on that he was struggling with a lot of stuff. Yeah. And he just never talked about it. And it was one of those things that really hit hard for us, because like, if we knew at all, like, we had an entire team that would be there for him in a heartbeat. Yeah. And so we've really made that a forefront. Like, every single year we created a cosplay competition in his honor. We donate proceeds that we get from that to the Canadian Mental Health Association. We try and break the stigma of talking about things that are troubling people. We try to make it so that it's, like, doesn't matter what you're a fan of, doesn't matter if you vote a certain way or think a certain way. You're welcome at our convention, right? Yeah, like, you can come in, you can just toss all your stuff at the door, go and have a great time. People, like, if you don't like somebody there, like, that doesn't matter, because there's lots of stuff to do.
2 floors.
Yeah, like, if you're not a fan, like, if you're a fan of the LGBT, if you're not a fan of the LGBT, no one asks, no one cares. Everyone just goes and has a great time, because they're there for comics, they're there for entertainment, they're there for whatever. And it's such a great atmosphere. And we've had tons of people, like tons of kids that have grown through our convention. They've met people. They've said, how they were just like these introvert, little kids that used to stay at home and not talk to anybody and whatever else. And they come out and they cosplay. They meet people who are like them. They grow and they enjoy themselves, and they grow into these beautiful people. And I think it's important through entertainment. I think it's important through different events like that to foster, like you said, like your parents fostered you with your artistic expressions. I think it's really important to have places that people can just go
Yeah.
Because I think mental health's a really big thing.
And also to add to our friend Lee's story here, he never ever wanted to be a bother. He was always looking to help people. I've seen this several times. I'll probably say this several more times. I've been around the block several times, and I honestly mean that on a whole bunch of different levels. And the thing about Lee, he was very, very genuine. He really wanted to help people. He would take the shirt off of his fucking back and give it to somebody if it meant that individual would be a little bit better for it. And he did that. And on top of that, well, one of the few things I'd like to mention this broadcast before I start crying like a stupid baby idiot that I am, is that if you're ever in that place, never feel that you're a bother. Reach out, talk to somebody, because again, when Lee passed away, I was completely devastated because Lee was there for me and I was there for him. And the thing is, hearing that he had all of this pain that he was going through really blew me out of the fucking water. And again, he just got to that place where he thought that no one cared. Everything's dark. He's just not seeing things from, I don't want to say a proper perspective, but from a positive perspective. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that one of the things I picked up with Crumb here, Crumb has always been telling me that things are not as bad as they seem. There's always a little bit of good hiding in there sometimes, maybe in the forefront sometimes, maybe in the background sometimes, but there is good. And sometimes people have difficulty seeing that, especially when they reach that point of crisis. So,
and I know one thing he said on his video. He apologized to everyone because he didn't think that there was no one that supported him. He knew that he had support. He knew that he had people that cared about him. He just didn't see a way that it was going to get better.
Yeah.
That was really tough. That was really, really tough because it's like you try to rationalize it, right? You blame yourself for not being there enough, but there's really nothing that we could have done. Like it was at a point where it was just too much for him. And I think it's like on us as a society to make that better for people in general and just not being dicks to each other. Like being understanding.
It's a tricky thing. You know, you talk about having a convention setting that's like open to all. And, you know, to me, the idea of somebody who's using your words, I'm paraphrasing, but like not a fan of the LGBT, like my first thought when I hear that is anybody not down with LGBT needs to go back to 1999 where they belong. But at the same time, because it makes me mad because like I feel like I'm so entrenched in that community and so like, you know, that's one of my political, it's something I'm passionate about. But at the same time, I have a friend who's been making good points on Twitter about how you really don't win anybody over with negativity. And it's like at a certain point, if there's marginalized groups that haven't been able to raise awareness any other way, I don't blame them for being angry and for that coming out sometimes through protests, through just, you know, slacktivism, which isn't a nice word, but you know what I mean? Like posting on social media and stuff. But at a certain point, though, if you don't create a space where someone can be exposed to a different viewpoint and see that, like, well, I was raised one way, but now I've hung out with all these cool people that I was told were bad or doing something wrong. Well, maybe I was wrong. And if people are yelling at you that you're wrong, that doesn't work as a way to learn and grow toward being a better person for everybody. It's a real balance. Like, you know, I won't lie. I'm very passionate about a lot of these things. And it's hard for me to imagine getting along with someone who, for instance, like doesn't think trans people are real. You know what I mean? Or like doesn't think, you know, the list goes on of things that I'm like, I don't even know how we can have a regular. And the thing is, these are in some cases, my family members. I'm from Texas, so we disagree.
You mentioned that.
We get along at Christmas, but we're always 2 steps away from being like, well, if we're going there, mother, you know.
Do I gotta get my guns out again? This is coming down to down the hat.
But we got a few friends from Texas, Brent. May I ask whereabouts?
I am originally from the Dallas area.
All right, good friend of ours, Ty Beard. If you're watching, hello, sir. He's from Tyler, Texas.
Oh yeah, I think Tyler is. I'm not exactly sure, but I don't think it's that far from Dallas. It might be a suburb.
It's about an hour drive from Dallas.
Yeah. Dallas Fort Worth is one of these weird areas. I think it may be one of the only, if not the only, metro areas called the Metroplex, because it was these two little. It was like Fort Worth, an actual fort, and a little city built around that. And then Dallas was just like the intersection of a bunch of, I think, cattle trails that became the intersection of a bunch of railroads along with the Trinity River. And so, like, you had these two cities, maybe, depending on how you measure, 20 to 30 miles apart, but they just grew the way that American, especially southern suburban cities do, and kind of amoebaed into each other. And now it's this super huge pancake of a multi-town city with 100 suburbs. So, like, it's say what?
Sorry, because you got Arlington to the left, you got stuff above you, you got stuff to the right. It's just like all smashed together. Yeah. I gotta say, man, your highway scared the shit out of me. I was down there visiting family in Palestine, right? And we got to go to the airport. So I go to Tyler, go to the airport, plane's delayed. All we can get back to Canada is to go right to Fort Worth. So it's about a 30-minute drive from where we are, 30-hour drive from where we are to Dallas. And we get on the highway, and this guy's not paying attention. He's one of the 18-wheelers, right? And we're trying to merge to go around him. He merges almost into us, and I could go on about Texas drivers, but I won't. That is the scariest shit I ever been through.
Yeah, I remember there's an area of the Dallas highway system called the Mixmaster, which gives you an idea of.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember driving under part of that, and I mean, you really feel it's like a Texas version of Blade Runner for just a quick second. You're under all these different tunnels and ramps all around and above. And my buddy from West Virginia went to college with me. He went, from small town West Virginia. We were driving from Oklahoma, a fairly short trip down to Dallas. He had never seen anything like that. And he was like, kind of like you said, Phoenix, he was like, I'm a little freaked out by all of this around us.
And I'm driving.
I'm ready to not be under all this concrete in these spaghetti strand ball of yarn ways. So anyway, yeah.
The best way I think of it is, remember those Hot Wheels ramps you had? You put the car through the little racer and it speeds it up?
Yes.
Yeah. Ooh, I have a show and tell.
Okay,
perfect. I'm excited for this.
Sometimes you get paid a little more than you were expecting, and then you get drunk, and then you make an impulse buy that is probably questionable, but I got the Luigi set.
Amazing.
Nice.
Bring it closer to your camera.
So this is not just a collector's item. As some of you may know, this is part of the new Mario Kart app on the Nintendo Switch.
Yes,
and so basically, this is a remote control car that actually responds to your Switch, but it's got a little camera on it. So you play the game on your Switch from the perspective of Luigi here, and you create a track around your house. And
we're getting
pretty. Say again.
It's kind of funny. I'm sorry for interrupting. Crumb and I were actually talking about this a few weeks ago, and I'm going, okay, that's cool. Yeah. And now I'm hearing you saying it, and I'm seeing what's involved. I'm going, yes, we have to get 10 of them.
I mean, the thing is that, like, if I get tired of it, which is likely, I'll probably like re-gift it to my nephew and just be like, hey, bud, this isn't brand new, but I thought you'd enjoy it. But the thing is, the one bummer of it is, I think that it's for very specific domestic settings. I think if you have carpet, you'd have to like find some clever way to make a track unless it was really short carpet. And I live in a 2-bedroom apartment by myself, and I love it, but it's a little bit snaky as an apartment, the layout. Yeah. So I really any course that I make through my apartment, because you put little different archways to set up, which, you got to go through one and you got to go through two, and it makes a course. I have what I would call a high difficulty apartment. Like when you're playing a racing game at the arcade and like you roll your steering wheel over to easy mode and it's just an oval, but then like hard mode's like, so I am glad this thing is sturdy because I have run it pretty fast into a lot of surfaces and a lot of furniture, but it's fun. It's really fun.
That's awesome.
I got a few burning questions I've been wanting to ask you.
Go for it.
I've been a big fan of yours for a long time. Why do you hate Mega Man 7?
Oh, I don't hate it. It's more that, I think if there's one thing I probably would have done differently in my early days is maybe not just throw out extremely negative opinions about things that I don't absolutely have that real opinion about. Because to quote myself in 2008 said, Mega Man 7 sucks big dinosaur balls. And so the thing is, I just think 7 is a letdown for a lot of reasons. I think that like Mega Man X was already happening, and after X, there's something about it. I think a lot of people agree, maybe except for people who's, if it was their first Mega Man, a lot of times you have childhood nostalgia for something where you didn't know what to compare it to. But it's not that I absolutely hate it. It's just that like, if I sit down and play Mega Man like 2 through 6, I can basically enjoy it, get into it, even if some of them aren't my favorite. But 7 just like, it's like there's something a little unpleasant about it. I don't love the way they sort of adapted the musical style of the classic NES Mega Man games to Super Nintendo. It doesn't feel right. And yet, I don't know exactly why. And I always hate when there's like a highly subjective, non-specific critique of something, and I'm definitely doing that right now. But yeah, it just doesn't feel good the way that Mega Man X and the classic Mega Man games do.
Yeah.
It's also a jump from 16-bit from 8-bit.
Yeah.
It seems a bit of like a whiplash when you think about it.
Yeah.
Going back on what you said about being a creative, your Punch-Out music video that you did, you're running down your street in boxer shorts, and there's a video. In the video you can see someone looking at you like, oh, there's a joke in the community, your community saying, oh, there's Brent again running around doing a music video. I wanted to ask you, do you know who that was?
No, I'd have to check the video, but I'm almost positive of which part you're talking about. So at that time, I was between jobs, and I quit a thing in New York City, got a subletter, and decided to move home, moved to my hometown for like 5 weeks in between the 2 gigs. And so I was living with my friend Matt. That's why, in the video, I think before that or after that, Super Mario Brothers 3, I'm with my friend Matt V. He plays, the guy that plays as Mario, and I play as Luigi. But I was living in his spare room at that time. And so that wasn't my neighborhood. That was his neighborhood. And to do that shot, we got his SUV. He's like got his handy cam. They're going 5 or 10 miles an hour. I'm hauling ass, but trying to sing at the same time and get it in one take because I really don't want to be doing this many times. And so I think it just happened that somebody on the street was like, what is going on here? And and just got caught on tape. I think that's really how it happened.
Because there's a meme of it going, oh, it's Brent again. He's making a music video. Just ignore him. There's that. Oh, I was going to ask you, did the Power Glove really disappoint you? Because that's another meme I've seen is where your expectations of the Power Glove, and there's that quote, "It's so bad," and like he was serious. Was it really that bad? I want to say I was 3 or 4 when I got my first NES. I wasn't around when it was first launched, so I missed a lot of stuff like Robo and the Power Glove. So I can't really say for sure what they prefer. What's someone looking for? I never got the accessories, right? Mm-hmm. So I wanted your take on it. Was it really that bad?
Yes, it really was. The thing about the Power Glove is that the promise of the Power Glove and the concept of the Power Glove were what sold it.
Yeah.
The idea that you could, this is what sold the Wii, but it took them up until, like nearly 20 years later to perfect, well, not even perfect, to just get motion technology as a controller to the point where it really felt natural and felt good. And one of the biggest problems with the Power Glove is they made less than 5, maybe it was more like 2 games that were specifically for the Power Glove. So it's, it was hard to set up, and it wasn't really anywhere near as responsive as you'd like it to be. And to the extent that there were just buttons you could press on it, you're playing a game on your forearm with your fingers.
Back in the 90s.
Yeah, what a terrible way. Think about playing Mario with your left hand as the entirety of your ability to play the game. I'm sure there's like people.
It was so space aged. It was wonderful, though.
That's the thing. I'm sure there's people with one hand that have learned how to play, on a controller with one hand, and good for them. That's great. I just remember I didn't even own one. I played my friends, and it just it did not work the way that it was advertised. To the extent that it worked, it wasn't very fun because you're sitting there going I have to point it toward the TV, but my arm is getting tired. It was built for hands that were it's a little tight if you have a fully adult hand. It's a little loose if you have a kid hand. It really was a disappointment. They didn't think it through. And to the extent that it turned a profit, which it did that on the promise of what it might be able to do, but in fact could not do.
Right.
Well, the Wizard also played a hand in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that thing was a giant, huge commercial for Nintendo. For
Absolutely.
Do you have anything else in Phoenix?
Oh, there is actually 2 more things. What's your favorite video you've done? Personally, mine, I love Dr. Mario. That's when I'm depressed, I watch it and I laugh my ass off.
Well, thank you. So this is a question that the answer changes pretty often, just depending on my mood. So I would say that, let me just give you some, usually I say the BioShock song because my dad has not really played video games since the early 90s, but he still loved that song knowing nothing about BioShock. And I think that just speaks to the idea that it wasn't with lyrics. It was an original tune, which I do maybe 1/3 or 1/4 of the time. And I just think it was really catchy. I think it was really made good jokes and observations about the game. I did a Final Fantasy IX song called Zidane to Vivi, which is
nice.
It's pretty good. It's kind of doing it in a Ben Folds 5 style. But the reason it's one of my favorites is because for some reason people have latched onto it as a song that cheers them up, which I didn't expect. Or if they're feeling really down, it's a hopeful song. So even though it's not my favorite song I've ever written, that one, it's just nice to know that people are going out of their way to tell me hey, this song was part of bringing me around to a better place, even whether in a small or big way. And finally, I would say the Ocarina of Time one that I did with Dave Bulmer. We did for those of you that don't know, a 10-minute mini musical about 2 exaggerated versions of us arguing about whether Ocarina of Time is any good versus something like Zelda: A Link to the Past. And it gets so heated. By the way, we're singing a little mini musical over Skype, using all the different themes from Ocarina of Time as the basis for the lyric. That's so then it gets so heated. I get so pissed at him. I hop on a plane, go to his house to beat him up. The thing is, he lives
that's involved.
He lives in Manchester, England, and we actually shot footage at his apartment where we have a fight. And it's very much, if you're familiar with Les Miserables, where the musical where Jean Valjean and Javert have this scene where they're both singing at the same time. And it's are they going to beat each other up? What's going to happen? It's really tense. And we kind of did a version of that with Zelda themes. and it took us. We worked on it on and off for 2 years, and
They come out for you, Brent.
say what? Oh yeah. I live right near a very popular street for police and for motorcycles. So
Awesome.
Awesome.
but yeah, so I would say BioShock, Zidane to VV, and Ocarina of Time with lyrics are definitely in like the pack of videos of mine that are my favorite.
That's awesome. Desmakia in the chat saying, "Ooh, Zidane to VB is my fave."
Thank you.
Another one I like is your Don Corneo for the Mega Ram project.
Oh yeah, that one's so interesting. I only did the vocals. Raheem wrote the lyrics, and it was interesting because he doesn't usually write in a style that's very much like mine. But for him to kind of write something a little bit closer to what I do and write it with me in mind, but with very different scansion and certain choices than I usually make, it to me lives on as this very like I don't think there's anything else like it in terms of like music that I've released or been a part of. It's extremely weird and unique.
Oh, that's so cool.
So
you said you had another one for Phoenix?
Yeah, last one was I just want to plug your newest song. Everyone check out his Mass Effect Reg. It's really good.
Thank you.
Also, Press was saying she loved your Luigi's Mansion series that you did.
Thank you. If they come out with Luigi's Mansion 4, I honestly don't know how I'm going to make a video because, man, there's only so many jokes you can do about Luigi running around and sucking up ghosts before it's like, I don't know. I make a joke about the wallpaper. Like, shit. What are we doing?
Oh, Luigi's the key master in the new Paper Mario. Like you send him to find a key, he's going to find every single key in the world.
Interesting.
Oh God, I'm thinking Kingdom Hearts and Luigi. Bad idea.
Keyblade master. I would not be surprised.
Now, here's a crazy idea. I don't want to solicit you for music options, but what about Luigi's Mansion with a Ghostbusters cross to it? What do you think about it if you second it goes?
I mean, the thing is, I would love to watch that video. I would not love to make that video. Like, I like the concept, but to me, it's like, you know, I did put a very brief Ghostbusters shot into which could have been edited better. I'm very much my own worst critic, but a Ghostbusters reference in Luigi's Mansion 3 with lyrics. I think that somebody who decided to go and do, for instance, Luigi himself singing the Ghostbusters theme with more Luigi's Mansion-ish lyrics could be great. So I think it's a great concept for a video. But after doing 3 Luigi's Mansion lyrics and the fact that there's not a 4th game, I'm so content to just take some time off of that series.
So I did want to touch on something that we talked about a little bit earlier, just to go back to it, because I know we were talking about like the mental health stuff and everything else like that. Now I wanted to touch on this because I have a really unique relationship with some people. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the creator of Earthworm Jim, Doug TeNapel.
No, I know Tommy Tallarico, but he was not the creator. So
no, we've had Tommy on the show. He's a friend of the show. I'm good acquaintances with Doug TeNapel. Now, like you said, you know, you don't understand how you can have a conversation with someone who's like completely doesn't think that trans people exist, for example. So like myself being trans, and I heard all sorts of stuff about Doug TeNapel. This is like probably a couple of years ago, a year or two ago at this point. But like I've heard him like be railed against for his views on gay marriage and different things like that, and his alleged transphobia and stuff like that. So I actually had the opportunity to go on on his YouTube broadcast. He's a fundamentalist Christian. He's very traditional, very, you know, like things need to be this way, marriage is this, blah 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 blah. but he also believes like, you know, people do what you want to do. It's fine. Like it's your life to do what you want. Blah blah blah. So we actually had a really good conversation. People were expecting blood sports when I went on his show. They were expecting us to like completely not get along at all. But we had a really respectful discussion, even though our views on things were polar opposites. Because like myself being trans, I like to tell this story a lot because before I say that I realized that I was trans when I was like 7 years old, but I didn't know until I was like 27. It's a weird thing to say, but like growing up, I always like pushed that part of myself down, never accepted myself, tried to be someone I wasn't. Spent most of my adult life being anxious and depressed and not understanding why. I had social anxiety really bad to the point where I was like breaking down in tears at work, and I just had no idea what was going on until I finally accepted that part of myself. And then like with medication, so like I'm on hormone replacement therapy, so much like you're saying for your anxiety, how that changed your life. This the going through this and like taking hormones and taking different things like that has completely changed mine as well. So for people out there, because like I understand growing up and not understanding things as a kid and being like, well, that's weird. Why are they taking that? Why do they have to do that? Kind of our mind's way of coping with things that we don't understand. It's like, well, that's dumb. I don't have to do that. Like, I didn't wear glasses until a couple of years ago. I don't have to wear glasses. Why do people have to wear glasses? There must be something wrong with them. That's like an archaic way of thinking. And as we grow, we kind of get away from that. But like, I didn't find out about this until recently, but Sammy Davis Jr. got a lot of flack for people out there who don't know. He's a famous musician with the Rat Pack, all that stuff, independent one with the Rat Pack. He used to get a lot of flack for associating and visiting Richard Nixon because he was very famous for being like the first. I think that he was the first black person hosted in the White House. He attended the first black tie affair, and he got a lot of flack from people for associating with Richard Nixon, who was like really like not a great person overall.
No.
And people always asked him, like, why do you do this? Like, why do you associate with this guy? He's like a total scumbag. And Sammy Davis Jr. says, well, you know, like if there's no discussion, like if we don't have communication, how can things change? Right. And so like that was my approach when I went to Doug, and people gave me flack in the LGBT community, in the trans community, saying like, why are you being a bootlicker? Why are you doing this? Like, why are you doing that? Like, why blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, we have to realize at some point we can't just be fight. Like I marched when I was like 15 years old. I marched in gay rights activist. Like I went to protests. I went and you know, counter protested against people protesting gay marriage and things like that when I was growing up. I'm a big activist in the LGBT community. And at some point we have to realize like punching and kicking and biting and whatever else, that is only going to get so far. You have to sit down and have a conversation. Because if you don't have an understanding of where the other side's coming from, it might not be right? Like they might be stuck in the 60s. But the thing is like they don't know anything other than some random person coming and screaming at them for being themselves. So if there's no communication and there's no understanding, and just mutual respect for the positions, right? Because like I'm not expecting Doug to change, for example. Like he's like pushing 70. I'm not going to expect somebody who's in that age group or that from a different time. I'm not expecting them to change. Now, if we have a conversation, we can be constructive and we can respect each other's opinions. There might be where we can move that needle a little bit. And like I understand right now, there's a lot just before everything happened with the election and stuff like that. There was a lot with Black Lives Matter, different things like that. A lot of racial tensions, a lot of tensions in general that were boiling over. And it's emotion because people don't understand how to deal with this emotion. They don't know how to express it, and they have this baked in belief, whether it's from upraising, like being raised a certain way, being told that you're never going to be heard, blah 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 blah, or having media or having X person or Y person or whatever tell you that these things. People aren't willing to communicate because they're afraid for whatever reason. Either they're afraid of their opinion changing, either they're afraid of getting retaliation, other they're different things, different motivations. But a lot of what we're seeing boil over in the LGBT community, in the Black community, Indigenous community, is all of these years of pent up frustration and not being able to communicate.
Right.
And so I think people need to learn how to take a point and how to give a point. Obviously, if for someone like Trump, for example, he's never going to change. Right. These people are so dug in their beliefs, they're never going to change. You have to respect that. I'm not saying that you have to accept it, but you have to respect that that's a thing. You're not going to be able to move that rock. So what can you do? Well, you can move around it, or some people are trying to blow through it, but that's a lot of energy. And like you said, it's about positivity and all this stuff. So we've Mr. Hop and I have gone through a lot of stuff in the past 5 years of people who have been tearing at us, tearing at our convention, tearing at things like that. One thing that we've learned is that the best way to get back at these types of individuals, if you don't like Trump, if you don't like Biden, if you don't like Doug, if you don't like whatever else, the best way to get back at these people is to rise above them and pull people up with you, and just positivity and all that stuff, because everyone's dealing with different stuff. Everyone's dealing with different stuff. You don't know if the person next to you is dealing with something that they don't understand. Maybe they're on 6 different medications and they don't know which one's working, or they're not working and they don't know why. You don't know if they need to be if they need to be on a medication, or if they need to do this or that. Our brains are weird. We do a lot of weird things, and we're only figuring out now, what would have put you in an asylum 50 years ago is a normal thing now that we can live with and we can deal with. So I know I'm getting all over the place with this stuff.
No, I get it. I get it. I mean, I think that you have, having spent time in Canada and the United States, I think you have a slightly more Canadian version of how I feel. But basically, I think that people who what am I trying to say? I think people that hold certain prejudices and discriminate in certain ways need a healthy diet of attack and conversation. Because if you're a privileged person and not realizing you're unfortunately part of a group that is passively, even unknowingly oppressing a smaller group, sometimes just by ignoring them or othering them, if the only thing you get is positivity and nice conversations, you can be like, yeah, well, I'm not really interested in that, but thanks for your opinion. So part of what brought me around in 2014 was I broke up with my girlfriend, and she really didn't care about a lot of this stuff. And then I hit back into Twitter with my usual sense of humor, and there were consequences. And I could have gone, well, you just can't say anything anymore. Ugh. But I kind of went, well, what's this about though? Where's this anger coming from? And I'm not perfect, and this is not me giving myself a trophy for listening. It's more just in a landscape where suddenly I was single and not comfortable with sort of a girlfriend who I don't want to.
Yeah.
I didn't need to change 100%. Any of my opinions in that situation. Yeah. It was cool, generally speaking. But I kind of, for me, a combination of backlash, but also people willing to kind of educate me or just say, hey, here's why that is hurtful to say. Here's why, to me, that was good. If they had only been positive about it or tried to educate me, but in a toothless way as a group, then I probably wouldn't have come around to it. But it's if you look at the world and go, it's going to be more annoying for me to hold this opinion, but also maybe I'm being a dick and not realizing it. A diet of both of those, I think, is actually better than constant attack and feeling like, everybody hates you and they think you're terrible and a monster, or kind of toothless, playing nice, trying to just have a conversation. There's got to be both, because people that are already in the position of privilege are going to have huge inertia and ignorance at the same time. So it's tricky, right? And there's no perfect answer. And I just think, you spoke to the emotions of people that have put up with bullshit for a long time. And I think part of the reason things are boiling over, and again, I think I'm saying something very similar to you, is if they've been asking and asking and asking, and they've been told soon you will be respected in a certain way, or now that there's a black president, racism is over, that kind of shit.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, at a certain point, it's kind of like the powers that be will always say, well, I didn't mean protest in that way. Well, I want you to have free speech, but I didn't want you to go and do that. And it's like, Colin Kaepernick kneeled in the most unviolent act you can imagine. The only act less violent than that is a protest of sleeping. He kneeled. And people were like, whoa, no, I have a problem with this. And after a while, you just go, man, they're not going to respond to anything sweet, nice, or gentle. And now you got people mad in the streets. And we could go into all the details of that. But I guess my point is the feelings behind that have to do with a desperation of nothing else has worked and we're still mad as hell. Yeah. So,
100%. And I think it comes down to moderation is a really important thing. And I'm saying this as someone I'm white as a board, right? Like I'm like mixed between like French and Irish. So, and I'm Canadian. So I'm whiter than
you bleed
than
milk is what you're saying.
Exactly. Bleed milk and Irish cream.
I'd say you're whiter than the Conservative Party.
Wow, that's pretty white.
There you go. So like when I talk about this stuff, like I understand that I have a privilege above a lot of other people to say this stuff, and I'm not trying to take away. And this is why I don't like to speak. It's part of that thing where I want to speak about it, but it's not appropriate for me to speak about it, about like Black Lives Matter, stuff like that, because that's not my voice, right? That's not something I should talk about. I will assist people, and I will acknowledge it, and I will call it out when I see it from people around me. But again, it's like I don't want to take away the spotlight from people who are in that situation, right? Whereas like I get offended, well, not really offended per se, but like I look at it and I'm just like, really, when people who are not part of the LGBT or trans community and stuff like that, they try to get a spotlight on themselves.
I'm sorry.
You're fired, Phoenix.
I gotta take this. It's my doctor.
No worries.
Sorry, guys.
We'll mute you. So when other people try to stand on a soapbox and get attention to themselves by using our plight and stuff like that, and again, like this is not me saying like anywhere near what Indigenous people have gone through, anywhere near what like African or like Black people or whatever have gone through, because that's like literal centuries of shit, and we've only been going through it like 20-30 years, like 50 years, whatever. But I don't think it's appropriate for people to do that. I am plenty well good enough to stand up for myself for this type of stuff.
It's tricky, right? You don't want to pull the microphone away from somebody else. But if there are no allies, like for instance, if there were no white people marching in the 60s and they were just like, I'll let them take care of it. I don't want to take the soapbox away from them. Like it would have been different. But at the same time, to your point, there are very often people that are, I'll use the word white knighting, but kind of in like a way that and it's not like I've never been performatively woke. It's an easy temptation for anybody on Twitter, or being performatively not woke if that's the crowd they're playing to. But I think that it's again got to be a balance between, if you make it all about you, then you're not doing it right. But if you never, if somebody's like, I'm going to stay out of it entirely, you can still be in many ways a good person, but you're not really an ally, True.
Yeah. And I think Dave Chappelle said it best, because he's like, everyone wants him to come out and say something about it. Everyone wants him to use his platform for this and that. And he's like, this generation, it's like, they got this. It's time for us to take a back seat. It's time for the younger voices to step up and say their piece, because it's like we've been saying this for years and people aren't listening to us. It's like, but these kids, like they have it's like it's my time to take a sit in the back.
Yeah.
And like I'm not saying just throw it all away and just don't support anybody. I think moderation is a big thing. I think moderation, knowing what to say, when to say. I look at it from a customer service perspective, right? Because I spent like probably a good 12 years in call centers. So like non-visual communication is really important in a call center. And I know a lot of people struggle with that, because I was a manager for a good number of years, and my agents would oftentimes have a lot of problems, like internalizing the problems that they get from people. Like the people call in screaming, angry, because they're mad at the service or they're mad at a product. They're not mad at the person because it's the first time they talk to that person. So I have to I tell people, it's like, look, you have a circle of control, right? Like you have a little bubble of what you control, and that anything outside of your circle you can't control. Like you can only control you and your response to it. So if you get someone that's calling in really angry, really mad, you have to empathize with what they're going through. Put yourself in that situation and say, okay, well, this is happening to me. How would I feel? And then understand and show you understand and listen to them. Let them vent. Let them get their opinion out. And listen is the big thing. Like communication is the big thing. And then from that point, don't compound the problem. Like if you can't do anything, don't just sit there and ignore them and say, well, sir, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. Because it shows that you just don't care.
Right.
It shows that you're not listening. And like, even if you can't do anything, tell them that you're going to try to do something for them, because it's better than nothing. And it shows that you actually care, and it shows that you're actually paying attention. So like I apply customer service standards to a myriad of things. I think everyone in life should do a customer service job at some point to get these skills, because they're really transferable to every situation in life.
Well, and also it knocks your ego down a few pegs, which I think a lot of people, I think everybody, no matter what level they are in terms of class or money or whatever, needs to either wait tables, do a front counter job, work with customers, because I think a lot of the worst people, when you work in customer service, a lot of the worst people that call in are the ones that never worked that job and don't understand it's not your fault.
It's true.
Like when I get the maddest, the way I am pissed off when I'm calling a customer service or technical support line is when I say, I know this is not your fault, and I know you didn't make the rules. Like, because that's when I'm actually telling myself not to rip this person apart. But it's because waited tables, I did temp gigs, I did catering. And frankly, when you are a YouTuber and you sit at a booth for 8 hours, hoping people want to come up and buy your stuff, but also they're fans, but maybe they're coming from all kinds of different places. Maybe they're neurodivergent. Maybe they're on the spectrum and don't act the way that you're used to people acting. You really have to learn to put people at ease. And that goes against the fact that a lot of my personality is, and where my comedy comes from, is snippiness, aggressiveness, dominance, and so there's that part of it, right? There's that mean streak. But to your point, I think that the best interactions always come from either a neutral or positive place, even though I stick to my guns, moving outside customer service, that if somebody never faces any backlash or sense of consequences, then they might just never really consider whether it's worth looking at somebody else's opinion. It's a mix of both. Agreed. But I think the customer service experience it's very wise. The idea that has analogs in a lot of other things that matter, probably more than customer service.
Well, I've been in situations, and for the most part, as an agent, you can't really get curt with customers because that just escalates the situation. But as a manager, I've been in situations where I'm neutral, I'm calm, I'm trying to help this person to the best of my ability, and they're just like constant 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, and they just don't stop, and they end up treating the problem as if it's me. And then there's a difference when you look at it. It's not all the time, but you can tell when people are taking their issues out on the person rather than the company. And so like at those times, I have no problem just giving them like the quick like snap, be like, hey, I'm here to help you. Like if you want my help, we have to communicate. You have to be curt, and it's kind of like reading the room. So like as a comedian, right? As a comedian or an entertainer, you know your audience because you look and it's like, oh, that didn't go so well. That didn't play over so well. So you kind of like get an idea of how people work or react. It's more difficult over the phone because you don't see the body language and reactions, but you can tell in the tone of voice and you can tell in different things like that. And it's one of those skills. It's a learned skill. It's not something you can just immediately get. So that's why I think it's so important.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And like you mentioned at conventions and all these different types of people, and like I used to work, not really work. I used to coach and play sports with special athletes, and we had a team mostly made up of special athletes, and we played in a league with non-special athletes, like regular people, and in terms of performance, we did amazingly well. I think we finished like second overall in the league, which was great. And these individuals, they were functioning from all levels of the spectrum, like high functioning, autistic, etc., developmental, etc. And they were incredible people, like absolutely fantastic people to work with. Yes, they have their quirks, but the fact of the matter is everyone has quirks, right? We all have quirks in different ways. It comes down to patience with people. And like I get frustrated when I see people just like dismiss or treat people that are on like that have autism or things like that with such disrespect and just like haste. We're in a world now like we have to like have everything response really, really quickly. We don't stop and be patient with people, and we leave people behind. So like I'm very much in terms of like for the conventions and stuff like that. I love seeing the interactions that that people have with that. And like for yourself, like have you done a lot of conventions?
Something like 80 or 90. Yeah.
That's really good. So like, so you see what I'm talking about, like in terms of some of the interactions with people, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you just have to learn that first off, the number one lesson is the ways you thought were normal for people to act, no matter how broad that window, I guess, of what you thought was normal behavior. In convention settings, you're going to meet people that are outside of that, and it's not their job to conform to you. It's your job to realize there are different ways somebody can communicate. There are different ways somebody can act. And I'm not saying, oh, you like to punch me in the face. That's interesting. I just mean like, I think that we have so much more awareness about things like people on the spectrum in 2020 than we did when I went to my first convention in 2009. And like, am I a nerd? Was I a nerd growing up? Sure. But by the time I was doing my first convention at 25, I was trying to balance having nerd cred, but also trying to run from the trappings and stereotypes of being nerdy. And I don't know, like I simultaneously learned there's a lot of stuff that fits right into the stereotype that has nothing to do with whether somebody is worthwhile. And I think also I started to feel like, no, these people are my people. Like it reminds me of how one time there was a sports journalist convention going on in the other part of a convention center hotel complex. And this guy on the elevator was talking about, man, you see these kids, and I wasn't in cosplay. You see these kids, man, if I was doing stuff like this, my dad would kick my ass, man. I just can't believe like what's happening to children today. Now, I got so flustered in the elevator, I didn't say what I wanted to say, which is football fans paint their bodies and put cheese on their head, you fucking dick. You don't even realize what you're saying. You're being an asshole. You're on the wrong side of history. But in that moment, I realized I would have thought cosplay was kind of just for nerds outside of Halloween 5 years before that. And I think that it was good. And, it really weirdly broadened my worldview to experience all the different kinds of people you meet at a convention. That you want to talk about having conversations and listening to people. When you're sitting at a booth and people want to come up and talk to you or buy stuff from you, you can't help but learn just all of the ways that people can be that you didn't know. It's really eye-opening.
Exactly. And it's such an enriching experience. Like I know there's some individuals out there that just look at attendees as a payday and they don't care about them as a person or like, but like I know a lot of like voice actors, I know a lot of actors, a lot of celebrities that actually genuinely care to know and relate to their audience and relate to their fans. And I think that's such a special thing. That's such a unique thing, and it's such an amazing thing because in our experience, like in our little tumble through the universe in the short time that we have in it, we don't really have a lot of time to learn much or what have you. And just to like fight back against what we're being taught is just, it's so counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to what I was saying about like with my accepting that I was trans and going with the transition and doing that. It caused me to have such a great depression and just general unease about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like fighting back against things, fighting back against lessons. It's so counterintuitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's such an enriching experience to learn about people, to learn the different types of people, the different cultures. Like if you go to a convention, depending on what convention it is, it could be like visiting an entirely different country. Like you have entirely different cultures, you have entirely different jokes and ways of saying things, ways of interacting. It's such and a lot of people use traveling, like physically traveling to different countries, as a way of enriching their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And some people use going to conventions, and I think that's really, really important.
Sure. Yeah.
I gotta get going, guys. I just want to say, Brent, pleasure talking to you finally after all these years. I'm with you on Star Trek being my first love. Star Wars is hit and miss. Don't at me on that. Real quick, favorite captain, and later, Hoser.
Nice to talk to you. And I'm probably going to be heading out soon, but is there any other stuff while I'm here, topics to discuss, questions, or anything that like you might wish you'd said or asked before I go? And also no is a perfectly good answer.
Well, again, favorite captain, and
that was a question. Sorry, your audio makes it a little tricky. Favorite captain. Okay, so I wrote a Star Trek musical, and it's about Wrath of Khan, and I have now played in 4 different productions or table readings Captain Kirk. And so even though I think Picard's a better captain in many ways, and probably in some ways even Janeway is a better captain, I have too much love for Kirk to not say he's my favorite.
I'm in the same boat with you. Janeway is a badass, but Kirk is a man. You can't go wrong with Mr. Shatner. Last one is, have you seen Lower Decks?
No, Picard, the show Picard so disappointed me that after the first 2 episodes of Discovery disappointing me, that when I saw this idea of like, oh, it's a comedy animated show about Star Trek, I thought, I'm kind of trying to do a goofy animated thing with Star Trek. And you could argue, well, shouldn't you be watching that? And part of me was like, I don't know if that's what I want to see from Star Trek. No. It's like it might be great, but they just do not have a good track record lately. And
it would be very edgy if it came out in the 90s, early 2000s. Now, right now is unfortunately 20 years too late.
Yeah, I believe that. And also, like, I don't want to box in what Star Trek can be, because people have been doing that and turning out to be proven wrong for a long time. But I don't need my Star Trek to be funny. The Orville was about as close as I want to get. And to me, the Orville didn't get good until they felt less obligated to have it be jokey.
Isn't that just the weirdest thing? Basically, the Orville was an offshoot parody of Star Trek. And now with Star Trek Discovery, Picard, Lower Decks, it's like that Orville thing. They got something.
Yeah, they're nailing it.
And it's funny and it's educational, and it pushes the envelope. It doesn't preach to you in 6 different languages you don't understand. It's actually entertaining.
Right. And it's like, to the extent that it preaches, it's in that Star Trek way where it's not, it's there might be a message, but it's more exploring the topic than just saying, here's the only way to look at it. Like the Tuvix episode of Voyager, you know, like where basically Janeway kills a living being, and nobody really knows. Nobody really knows like what she should have done. That episode doesn't exactly have a message. It's more just like inviting you to really explore a topic and go, well, what would I do? You know?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny how Star Trek Discovery borrowed a lot from the Orville, because could you imagine the actual writing, the writing room for that? Instead of going, okay, all right, what are we gonna do? I don't know. Sync up the Orville. Great. What are they doing? Fart jokes. Awesome. Let's bring this in the Star Trek.
Yeah.
Let's have uncomfortable elevator time.
For the first time in a long time.
So before I take off, I don't want to completely disavow your opinion on Lower Decks. Just with the open mind, think of it as Futurama about Star Trek characters. I enjoyed it. I love the little love letters to TNG. They have they won't spoil anything, but you'll see a lot of it.
Mm-hmm. I might check it out.
That's what.
Check it out. I just after Picard, I'm just like, I need to take.
It's kind of hard to bounce back. If you're going to like Lower Decks, it's another great animated feature that came out a while ago called Solar Opposites.
Mm.
That is, it's on Hulu, or was on Hulu. They're going through a second season right now. Absolutely hilarious as well. Great sci-fi fun.
Cool.
It's great color cleanse after Picard.
Yeah.
I'm out of here, hosers.
Thank you for joining, Phoenix. Take care.
It's time for me to head off too. Really nice to meet all of you and hang out and talk for a bit. Phoenix, thanks for inviting me, and hope the rest of the show is fun.
Yeah, Brent, how do people find you? We're
that's a great
behind you.
Why would I forget to say that? Okay.
So, promote yourself.
Yeah. So, okay, we've talked about a lot of topics. If you are interested in my nerdy content, including funny parody songs about video games, that's at youtube.com/Brentalfloss, like dental floss, but with a BR at the beginning. I made a super fun comedy party game that's kind of along the lines of Jackbox's Quiplash, but I think funnier. It's called Use Your Words. And you can find out more. It's on all the current gen consoles and Steam and the Wii U. You can find out more about that at useyourwords.lol. Yes, that is our real website, useyourwords.lol. And so the Star Trek musical I did, I don't really want it to go wide right now because I don't want the copyright holders to get mad. And also, it's not really done. But for those of you like big time Trekkies that want to, I'm just double checking a thing right here, that want to experience a version of it, we got a pretty good video of a production, like a staged reading at the Philadelphia Fringe Festival last year. If you want to watch that, go to twitter.com/UASTPM. That's UASTPM, which used to stand for something. And it's the pinned tweet. The unlisted video of that performance is the pinned tweet. I know that's ridiculous, but again, not trying to get this posted everywhere until it's done. Once theater returns as an existent thing in our world. Thanks for asking that. Before I forgot.
No worries. And we have someone shouting out here. Dr. Mario lyric song is an all-time classic. The Ragnarok Night wants to say that.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Yeah. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It has been awesome. We hit a ton of different topics. I'm so glad to learn a little bit more about you, and I can't wait to dig into your history and all the wonderful stuff you put together.
As long as it's not my internet history. All right. Good night, everybody.
Nothing.
Take care, Brad. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. What an awesome.
Well,
yes.
It's just the two of us with all the chats.
Yeah. My goodness, man. My goodness, man. That was a lot of fun. That was so good. I know we had a lot of different topics there.
Oh, yes.
All myriad of different stuff, which is what we get here. We're not scripted on the Canuckleheads show.
We're not?
We're not. I mean, if there is one, I don't know where it is. gone.
But that never really existed.
No
I
kidding.
think in my mind's eye it did.
So one thing I want to say just before we go.
What is
because
the
we're
one
gonna be
thing you want to
wrapping-
say
we're
before
gonna
you
be
go?
wrapping up the show in just a minute here, and we'll do
Mhm.
final thoughts in just a second.
Mhm.
Two things.
Two things.
If you like this kind of this stuff, like, subscribe. Like, the last video,
Yeah.
60% of our views came from non-subscribers.
Really? How'd that happen? How this happened?
If we had
all is YouTube, why aren't they doing their job?
if we had 50%, if we had like 50% of the people that watched the video that were the non-subscribers subscribing, we'd be over 1,000 subscribers.
Well, that's awesome.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So be sure.
Well, it's the YouTube game.
Be
It's
sure
the
to
YouTube
slash
company.
that like button. Be sure to slash that subscribe button.
Should they crush or crumb? One second. Hold on, just give me 2 seconds here. They should crush the subscribe button so much it becomes crumbs.
Exactly.
And the thing is that also that like button that's there, the blue thing, they should crumb the snot out of that one too, because it's just important.
Nail
and
it.
on top of that, anyone who has a social media platform, basically reposting the links to that is cool, especially if you enjoy what you're seeing, because these shows are always off the top of our heads, but
Exactly.
between the two of us, we have 35 years of broadcasting, and we like to bring the show to you as free as we possibly can. But however, we don't know if you're not enjoying our content with any form of interaction.
And I want to say one thing as
Of
well.
course.
We have a person that has been supporting Kitchener Comic Con since the inception here.
Who's that?
Brandon Flynn. Thank you so much. Brandon is making
I know Brandon?
probably
I'm
he's a
kidding.
good person.
I'm kidding.
Brandon is making a series of comic books.
Really?
Yeah. Brandon's
awesome.
making a series of comic books,
Awesome.
and one of his, and he's got an Indiegogo, which I'm going to drop in the chat right now. I want y'all to check out this Indiegogo. I want you to check it out.
Awesome. Shell.
I have to copy the stupid link again.
Selling seashells by the seashore. Shelling. Shell.
Go check out this Indiegogo because there's a really unique tier, and I think it's very affordable.
Okay.
Now, I purchased into it because it's amazing. One of his tiers that's currently open, if you back it, there's 7 out of 21 claimed right now. He is putting people who back this book and back this series, which he's planning on making into a cartoon series as well. He will actually write you in as a character.
Oh, that's cool.
In this comic book. So check out this Indiegogo. Super cool. I'm going to be a character in it.
Are you?
I am.
That's cool.
It's probably actually going to be. I'm going to substitute one of the characters from my OC, like my OG story that I'm writing. I'm probably going to be one of those characters because they're badass.
Oh.
So go check it out. Go back it. Wonderful thing. You're going to get some really cool stuff with it. Go check out all the details. I backed it, so you should back it too.
There you go.
So yeah, there you go. That's the shill for the day. Mr. Hop, final thoughts.
It's a good show. I like talking about Star Trek stuff. That's always fun to talk about. Star Wars stuff is always good. Baby Yoda was a dick last episode. But however, I would like to thank Phoenix to get Brentalfloss on the show for everyone's afternoon entertainment. And are we doing a show tomorrow?
Tomorrow,
okay,
Saturday the 14th.
Dun dun dun.
We actually have some very breaking news that we're going to be sharing from a specific convention that you're going to find out tomorrow because you're going to watch the show.
Okay. Am I?
We're doing convention horror stories tomorrow, so be sure to check it out.
Oh, so I haven't got that script yet, so
yes,
I have to read over that and try to memorize
exactly.
Yep.
So that is it for the Canuckleheads today. Thank you guys so much for watching, chat. You're amazing.
Yes.
Keep your stick in the ice. Until next time.
Be kind to each other.
Bye bye.
Congratulations, and thanks for watching.